Board of Supervisors for Monday, July 18th, 2022 into order and have roll call.
All right. So we'll start with roll call and Bob Anderson.
Here.
Stan Buchanan.
Here.
Audrey Kuslik. Here. Bill Efritz.
Here.
Craig Turka.
Here.
Dale Meineke.
Here.
Bob Rogers.
Here.
Diane Vaughn. Here. John Banks.
Here.
Terry Lee.
Here.
Carolyn Bartlett. Here. Pam Fall. Here. Bill Schradel.
Present.
Gary Taxell.
Here.
Jim Gores.
Present.
Gary Nelson.
Here.
Roberta Mosentine. Here. Pete Olson.
Here.
Kathy Crew. Here. Carol Moen. Here. Fran Langman.
Here.
Louis Oki.
Here.
Patty Anderson. Here. Brandy Cook.
Here.
Jerry McRoberts.
Here.
Marv Thompson.
Present.
Bud Hanson.
Here.
Stacy Wenzel. Here. Dana Heller.
Here.
All right, we've got everybody present, all 29.
Okay, public notification.
I, Wendy Coleman, Executive Assistant, have complied with the Wisconsin open meeting requirements. Meeting agendas have been posted in the electronic meeting notice boards located at the first and second floor of the Government Center and on the first floor of the Justice Center. A hard copy of the meeting agenda has been posted in the county clerk's office, and I have verified the proper posting of the meeting.
Okay, for our invocation is Reverend Sarah Hell from the United Lutheran on Prairie Farm.
Let us pray. Almighty God, you have called us to labor in your vineyard, and without you we can do nothing. Grant your gracious presence at this meeting, that what we will do will build up this whole community, this county, and this world. Let your Holy Spirit govern and direct us, that we may consult together peacefully, pleasing you with all that we do and say. Through Jesus Christ, our Savior and Lord. Amen.
Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, Reverend.
Thank you so much.
Okay, item number 3, special matters and announcements.
I've been asked to give an update on the auditorium. The auditorium seating should be here July 25th and installed shortly after. So I'm hoping that the August meeting will be in the Veterans Auditorium. That's all I have.
For the agenda, what I'd like to do is under item 8, there's 3 resolutions, A, B, and C. I'd like to take those as one. Somebody makes a motion that we approve one of those resolutions, either A, B, or C. And then I'd take another, the ordinance being separate. That would be 8D. We'd have a motion to, if they so choose, to pass that, and then we'd have a vote. Bill?
Make motion to pass resolution B.
Okay, well, hold on, Bill, you're way ahead.
Okay. Get her done.
That's, how about, you want to approve the agenda as I stated it that way?
Yes.
I'll second.
Seconded by Supervisor Gores. Any problem? Yeah, then, all those in favor of approving the agenda as amended indicate by saying aye. Aye. Opposed by the same sign? That motion's carried. Okay, item number 5, approve the minutes of June 20th, 2022. Motion by Supervisor Bob Anderson, seconded by Supervisor Hanson. Any concerns with the minutes? Not, all those in favor of passing them indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed by the same sign? That motion's carried. Item number 6, public comment. We got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and Russell Renzig, who is up first to talk about the Berrien County Fair. Let's come up here, Russ.
Russell Renzig, 2106 29.5 Avenue, Town of Oak Grove, Barron County. I'm here today to welcome you to the Barron County Fair, which starts on Wednesday, officially this week. Official opening will be at 2:30 with some speeches and the honor guard from the County American Legion opening the fair officially. Then there will be activities throughout the week. I think something probably for everyone, in terms of livestock, in terms of the carnival. Anybody here that dreams about having gone airborne, you'll have your opportunity with the carnival. You have a nice free fall that you'll get to know what it feels like to jump out of a plane.
Good insurance?
I did basic with the 82nd Airborne, but I did not go airborne. I thought that it was real cool to jump out of a plane. But there will be, I think, activities that you'll all enjoy. You're fortunately invited to come to one day or all the days of the fair. You can get a season pass for $20 and come every day as many times as you want. And like I say, the carnival's got some really good rides, even for people of our age. And if you'd like to hear me preach, I will be giving the message on Sunday morning at the ecumenical service.
Thanks, Russ. Next up is Heidi Weiss, talking about our election integrity. Heidi, would you like to come up? Russ, remember, you're supposed to state your name and address.
Yes.
Good job, bro.
Is the mic live?
I think so. Tap it once, see.
Heidi Wise from 746 21st Street in Chautauqua. And I am here to speak in favor of passing the ordinance for preventing private or nonprofit or corporate funds in our elections. Resolutions are great, and sometimes merely having a resolution or a proclamation is enough. But in this case, it's very important for something as foundational as our elections that are critical to the future of our republic, that we have some teeth in what we are doing here. And it is important that we are really working toward, this is a what I consider a first important step in making our elections easy to vote, but hard to cheat. And there are multiple steps I think are important, but this one is a great start. And for those who might argue that this would be redundant with any statutes we might have at the state level, I would argue that redundancy is important for very important things. And I would give you an example of an airline. I don't know how many redundancies are built into their systems before they take off, but there are multiple redundancies in an airplane. And so one might say, oh, well, we've already got a system that covers that. Well, you got to have another one. And another thing that they do as well is they have multiple checkpoints to ensure that people who are in lower ranking positions are able to speak out against somebody in a higher ranking position. And if I look back over the past couple of years and we say, oh, well, you know what, there's already a statute, we can just follow the law, I would posit that we in fact did not follow the law on several occasions. And in fact, the Supreme Court just ruled that we did not follow the law, especially with regard to ballot boxes. Okay, so it is critical that we have a place and a way that people have the courage and are given that courage to speak out and say, well, fine, you know, maybe they're not following the state statute, but we have a local ordinance. So when the state doesn't do their job, we can say locally, we're going to do our job. And this ordinance is essential for that. And like I said at the beginning, it's an important first step. And other things that we're going to need to start thinking about are, number one, now that the ballot boxes have been ruled illegal, what are we doing to ensure that they don't get used? So what's the teeth and what's the process for that? And I would also invite you to consider.
Writer.
State your name
Oh,
and address.
sorry. Wendell Kringle, 1110 16th Street, Barron, Wisconsin. Yet. I understand by trying to limit what the public can speak about, you are violating our constitutional freedom. What are you trying to push with this? Communism into our faces? I dare you.
All right, number 4, Bruce Willers. I don't know if it's the same thing, Bruce, or something different.
Hey, how's it going? I
Good.
think I know about half people in here. Good evening.
Name and
Bruce
address.
Willers, 529 North Main Street, Rice Lake, Wisconsin. Quick little reminder on the bottom of your sign up to speak at this meeting. It says on the very bottom, it says the guidelines listed on the back are to be adhered in order to ensure an opportunity for the general public to address their county board, your cooperation, and the following guidelines is appreciated. That's what it is, nothing, blank. So that's your guidelines. Anyways, go on to summaries and rules and procedures that are being brought before this very board to operate your monthly meetings and your committee meetings by. Section 2.0, G as in George, rule number 7, addressing the board. Modifications to the section clarify who may address the board by requiring individuals to be residents, landowners, taxpayers, and clarifying that written comments submitted will not be read. So what you're really saying is if you approve this, and I hope you don't, is that if I have a sister that can't speak, but she writes very well, that you will not take the subject matter that she put in written form and share it with the John Q public on the video that's being presented to the rest of the taxpayers live streaming. What are you thinking about when you do stuff like that? In addition to that, they're taking and sanctioning in the proposal of these rules, summary rules and provisions procedure to take and sanction their very own members by the fact that if they don't like what you do and how you attend and how often, they tell you when the meetings are, and if you can't show up because you're working yet, well, they're gonna take and remove you from the board or the committee. That's not right. You were elected by the taxpayers of Barron County. You are here to represent them. It is not the job of the rest of this board to take and sanction the elected officials for coming to meetings or not coming to them. That should be something that taxpayers do at the voting booth. That's their job, not yours. So, moving on.
25 seconds, Bruce.
I come before you tonight with the question, is in the summary rules and procedures, are you going to allow, when this comes before your body, to take and silence the very people that can't speak, that haven't the ability to speak, don't feel confident to speak, or maybe possibly don't even have the wherewithal to speak? That's it. Thank you, Bruce Willers.
Bruce, I will say that you're correct on that. We accept that if they have a written comment, they are put in the official minutes, so they will be documented there as a public record. You will be able to read what that person said. It will not be the same as being up here.
Sure. So if a blind person can't read and they're listening to it on stream, a point I'm making is that you should be reading all written comments from the taxpayers.
I get your point.
Thank you.
Jim Swenson. And I'm sure you're here to talk about the resolution and the ordinance.
And you guys are gonna break me in paper.
So it wasn't in the packet of all the stuff then?
This is other stuff that I promised you from the executive committee.
Oh, okay.
Well, yeah. Just hold on.
Keep the incinerator going, Jim.
Jim, could you maybe let Wendell handle those out and you talk to us?
I just gotta separate them for him. Yeah, these are all the same, those are all the same. Down here.
Let me hand this.
But that's okay.
We only get one, or I can't remember what we're talking about. I'm just gonna use my three to talk about, bring everybody up to speed what we talked about.
Oh, whatever.
I'm afraid I'm gonna make it.
Well, that's good. It's a big one.
All right, Jim?
Everybody got one? Jim Swenson, 1127 East LaSalle, Barron, Wisconsin. I'm the guy who sent you that original package considering this resolution that we adopted through Walworth County. Not much has changed other than the words Barron for Walworth, as you saw. I just gave you two packages, and I noticed the people that prepared these put my cover letter on the wrong one. Can you hear me back there?
No.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yeah.
The cover letter on the package they prepared for me today are backwards. So one belongs on the other. Okay? And just to quick bring you up to speed on where we are. Some of you weren't at the executive committee meeting. We talked specifically about these ordinances. We talked specifically about how to phrase specifics. And I'm not here to battle about words with this resolution. Our concern is the ordinance, okay? So Jeff French and I had a pretty good dialogue over the telephone one day, and I think he really understood what I said because he created a resolution of his own. At that point, I requested to be put on this agenda to talk about the problems with the one that he submitted. And I submitted that. That was that first page, and it shows the email. I submitted it to my county resolution and still, or to my county supervisor, and still haven't gotten a response. Okay, so a week or so ago, I reached out to Chairman Oki and made the same request. And as you can see, he said pretty much verbatim, we'll do this like we did the executive committee, hand out your packets during any conversation of this ordinance or resolution. I'll gladly give you my input if you have questions for me. The second packet is probably the driving factor in the proof of Barron County that I promised you all. Okay, this is the list by precinct. I have them highlighted in yellow. This is the money that came in from CTCL, okay, which was that Mark Zuckerberg group. Okay, we have 7 precincts in Barron County that took that money. That's an illegal action. Supreme Court just said so. Okay, about the past, about the future. So this will give you something to study and share. These are all the precincts in Wisconsin that took money. Okay, so I'm getting pretty close to the 30. So why don't we just, when we get to that point in the agenda, work for you?
Okay, yep, like I said, I'm not allowing Jim to be talking the agenda unless somebody, a supervisor, asks him a specific question. If they want him to elaborate on something, he will be certainly allowed to speak.
Is that on the resolution and the ordinance?
Sure.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, the last one is Patty Green talking about the Barron County rules and procedure changes.
Mr. Chairman, we didn't get the second.
Yeah,
We only got one.
some of us didn't get the.
Okay.
We only got one.
One.
One packet.
Well, the packet was made specifically for the county board supervisor, so if you're not one, please give it up.
That's the only one we got in this room.
We need a smaller one.
Here's another
We
one.
have a smaller one back there. And a bigger one.
I didn't get one. We got this one.
No,
We got
we
the small
are.
one. We did not get the big one.
I did not.
Which one did you get?
I didn't get the little one.
Okay, here's the big one.
Wendell will help you out.
Okay.
Okay, Patty.
Oh, you didn't get that.
Quiet please while Patty's talking.
Hey,
Jim.
Okay, wait, Patty, we'll just wait, I guess.
Anybody need a big one?
down here.
Everybody good? All right, Patty?
Patty Green, 169 21st Street, Cameron, Wisconsin. I'm here to talk about section 2013, addressing the board. As the other gentleman said, you not reading the minutes that, or the written comments that somebody sent in is definitely a violation of the public's rights. I don't know how many times over the last 2 years that that's really been an issue anyway. It's been maybe at the zoning and board of adjustments. I think it's ridiculous that you guys are really not reading it. I don't care if it's written in the little pamphlet, not very many people see that, just the board of supervisors and people like me who are, putting things out. And so I really think that you need to address that. It's ridiculous that you're not gonna. We have a lot of senior citizens who can't get to meetings. We have people who work, who when meetings are in the middle of the day, cannot attend them in person. You need to let them write things and you need to read them.
Now, we argued the rules of procedures, we're having our first reading tonight, and then next month will be the second one. If a supervisor feels like you've heard from a couple people, that's your prerogative to discuss that. Okay, number 7, update on the highway facilities, Mark Serby and CBS Square. We had a tour of the highway shop today for the supervisors if they wanted to see it. Jeff French had an excellent memo in his packet, a page and a half, of telling us why we have an overrun in the highway department. And CBS Squared has done an excellent job with their paperwork. It shows the overrun at this present time of $783,000. Those were all in everybody's packet and for the public to view as well. My own personal feeling is we have the best highway commissioner in the state. And overruns were not controllable. We've got a good highway committee. We've got a good highway facilities committee. They could not control what happened on this. So, and another thing is that highway department, since Mark Serby's been in charge of it and the employees that work there, they've turned that thing around where they've got a huge fund balance in there that allows to cover issues like this when they come up. So, Mark is going to come up and give you a brief update, but then the rest of the time, if you so desire, you can ask either CBS Squared or Mark Serby any questions you may have about anything on this on our new highway shop.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Can you hear me back there?
Yep.
No? No?
Speak up.
Mic's on.
No?
There's no
Thank
microphone
you.
in.
Oh, there's no mic?
That's for-
All right, that's wonderful. Now that I know.
Use your street voice.
We had that tour today. We had 15 of the board members there. We walked through the facility, just the ones that weren't there, we'll kind of give you a brief. Area is complete except for paint and lighting, shelving, that kind of thing. But again, all the walls are up. In the bathroom areas, all of the fixtures and everything are plumbed in. We don't have any of the fixtures set. None of the painting is done. But that area is basically now what we're going to be saying. We're moving that into more of a finishing type of process where we're going to start seeing drywall and things of that nature going in, hopefully in the next couple weeks. The mechanics area, we're working on pouring the floors. That's all heated, in-floor heat in there, so they have to lay the tubing down for the pours and then get the rebar over the top of that. We've got about a third of that area is poured now with concrete flooring. The indoor lifts have been, the carriages are all poured in. We're pouring the lube trenches for that area. If you move down towards the sign shop area, the floors are done in that area. In the administration area and the parts room laboratory areas, most of the rough electrical in, the conduits are in, the wires aren't pulled, but the conduits in, the plumbing is all in. All of the mechanical and heating and ventilating, a lot of that stuff is hung. When you're going out into the into the mechanics area. There's that mechanical work going on there, and they're starting on some of the mechanical work out in the heated storage area, even though there's no concrete floor. They're working off of scissors lifts and hydraulic boom lifts to start hanging things before we have concrete on the floor to try to keep the project moving forward. So, you know, it's kind of a struggle, and at times there's the industry-wide labor shortages are giving us problems in terms of schedule. You know, we're hopeful we're gonna maintain schedule as best we can, but you know, there's just a limited amount of resources. You call the halls right now and ask for help. You call the trade halls, and there isn't anybody on the bench. Everybody's working, so we could use a few more people on site, but the guys that are there are working as hard as they can. So, if there's any.
Yeah, it works.
It could go either way, that is correct, yes.
Okay, it's not written like that.
I hear you.
And as a taxpayer and as a board member, $30 million and unforeseen shouldn't be in the same sentence. When we take a look at whatever we're paying for the facility, unforeseen should not be in that category. I mean, we pay a lot of money for this planning.
We paid 25 million plus for this, yes. The soil, for instance, the state, as you saw, the state pushed us back. The soil borings, they did numerous soil borings. Unless you drill and they tried to hit every area of the office, you know, the facilities, they didn't catch it, so.
No, there are limits to what you can find in your pre-engineering in terms of, you know, there's buildings there you can't drill through the building floor and stuff like that. That's the largest portion was the material, the unsuitable material that we found. That was the largest portion of the dollars. And the over 500,000 of it was basically delays because of what we had with Schiphol. If we wouldn't have had that, you wouldn't have had that because, for example, we spent $100,000 on concrete, hot water for the concrete heating, unthawing and blanketing that we wouldn't have had if we wouldn't have had the delay from Schiphol. So that's kind of an example of some of the things.
Explain what Schiphol is.
Schiphol is the state historical society. But we work weekly, daily to try to control costs on this project. I mean it's not a small thing. I don't want this project to go over budget at all. Let's be very clear about that. None of us do. Some things are uncontrollable. The things that are controllable, we're trying to control. So I don't know, Bob, would you like to add?
Yeah, not only.
Bob Swirsky is from CBS Squared.
Not only trying, but I would tell you that we are. There was also another item in there that is totally beyond anybody's control, the third.
Bob, you might want to come up here just so you get in the camera so
And
the public can hear you.
I'll yell because my wife says I yell a lot. So there's another thing that's in this project that was totally unforeseen by anybody and under any stretch of the imagination, even when we started planning this, and it has to do with the utility issue with transformers and what's required by some third-party person coming in and saying, you know what, we're only going to allow you one transformer per address, no more, no less. That was totally unforeseen and talked about, and that has nothing to do with anything that anybody could have been doing on a design. That was huge cost. And if anybody cares to, there's a slide out there that we have available that talks about where the contaminated soils were in relationship to the soil borings. So you can see that it was kind of like, you'll have to shrink it, I guess. A little bit more. So this was the total site. There was almost 3 dozen soil borings on this site. And typically, after doing this for 33 years, you would typically drill through the floor of a building to try to find poor soils. Because normally you wouldn't build a building on poor soils, okay? So when you triangulate this map, and you can have this, I'm sure Jeff, or somebody could run you off a copy of this if anybody wanted to see it. There's also another map with the soil borings that are where the contaminated soils were found.
It's not just contaminated soils, it's also unsuitable soils.
Unsuitable, that's what I meant, I'm
They
sorry.
can't bear the weight, of the structure.
Yeah. There was one just off-site of where we were, a number of years ago, we built the salt shed. Never would have hit it, was just in front of it, and you wouldn't have found that unless you were gonna try to isolate, or expand the facility. So at the end of the day, it was still the right decision to stay at this facility, and it's still the right decision to invest the money in this facility as far as utilities and infrastructure costs, so.
Bill?
The 25 million, what was the contingency fund?
Contingency was a little over $1 million.
Yeah.
And that probably should have been more, huh?
Well,
I mean, not even counting this
Yeah.
bond, but you, on a project this big, being
So-
that I
so-
have
yeah,
people in the construction business, they tell me all the time, there's too many unforeseen items that come up.
yeah, so here's kind of just a general rule of thumb. I'll give you the broad brush of it, and then you can, I mean, that's when the hindsight kind of kicks in after the fact. But, it really is project dependent. So if you start a project and you're on a brand new site, an open field, what's called, oftentimes called a green site, all you're really worried about, something that somebody didn't dig up a hole and put burn some stuff and throw appliances in, okay? Typically, at the end of the day, you're saying it's a brand new building on a brand new site, and all we have to do is hook up water and sewer and electricity. We're right across the street from those utilities. The contingency would typically be 5%. If it's a straightforward building like new construction like this is, we do a lot of them. I've done over 110 or 120 of these types of facilities in my career. On the other end of the bookshelf, okay, you get to have a much more complicated facility. So something that involved like a hospital or a school or something where there's a lot more interior finishes and offices and those types of things. Or you're doing a heavy cut and patch. I have a project in Dodge Center, Minnesota. The entire building was totally gutted and it's all open to the elements inside throughout the whole thing. That you would put on a 15% contingency because you're literally taking everything out of that and starting over. Now, in this particular case, yeah, probably hindsight, we could have suspected that maybe we should have moved that to 10%. But in all the projects I've ever done over there in the last, 20 years, we really haven't hit anything. And the federated site, that was essentially clean. So nobody would have, and that paperwork is readily available. So there's no reason to have believed that, that there would have been anything that would have come up. I definitely wouldn't have bet on the third party, these new electric or FERC rules or anything like that. It's $100 and some $1,000. So I would have never seen that coming in. The SHPO thing, that whole agency it's kind of locked down. The idea behind that is that's something that we wouldn't have grubbed through because you have to have a passcode to get into that. It's not something that anybody or any engineering firm you have to be an archaeologist in order to get into that system because they don't want the average person, the John Q. Public person, trying to narrow down or cipher out where there might be some Native American artifacts that sites where people are gonna go. I mean, it's really a very cloistered environment. So that piece, so.
If we go back to the SHPO, what keyed that was at the end of the design phase, you get to the point where you have your last thing that you do is your grading plan, because you have to situate all your buildings, figure out what all your runoffs are, what elevations you're gonna have. Then you do your grading plan to manage the water and everything around that site. So it's the last thing that you do is the permit with the DNR for the grading. Now, if you go back to, I think it was 2018 when we installed the new fuel system on the west side. If you go back and remember what was there, There was an old highway facility there that was the original shop, we think was built in about 1911. It started life as a horse barn for the highway department. There was an old salt shed that was replaced. In 1982, we built a new salt shed, not me, on the other side of the 25 in back of the facility. And I found the notes from the commissioner at the time in 1982 when he built that salt shed. In red ink, it says remove salt shed next year. But the department kept using that salt shed. Well, somehow that became a historical building, even though the roof was falling in and it had no structural to it. There was a little old red garage next to that that was the sign shop. That was considered a historical site. And then the old office, which was on the corner. So what I'm getting at is there was 4 buildings on that facility, just on that side of the road, that were determined in 2011 were registered as historical sites. We did the exact same grading permit in 2018 with the exact same company, okay? And it never flagged, and we tore 4 historical buildings down without any ramifications. And then we go to get this permit, and all of a sudden now there's an issue. That's completely being blindsided. And then when we dig, we found out we were supposed to be notified when that was listed, and we never received any notification here at the county that those buildings were listed by somebody in 2011. We never received that notification, so we have no way of knowing that that's a historical building.
Right.
Other than the fact it's from the 40s. But we're looking at it and we're saying, you know, it's falling down, it's reached the end of its life. We tore these other ones down, there was no issues there. Now we go over here to tear this down. I asked the gentleman when I called him to try to dig into it, I says, okay, I says, this is actually what I told him. I says, where am I gonna go to jail? And he says, for what? And I said, in 2018, I tore these four buildings down across the street. His response was, well, we're not gonna worry about them, but this one over here we are. So,
And just for accuracy purposes, the project is 25.1 or 25.2 million, but that's not the construction cost, that's project cost. I wanna make everybody clear that this is not 25 point some odd million dollars worth of construction. This is 23 or 22 point some million dollars worth of construction. So when you take the 1%, getting back to we're right at that 5% level. You know, I was talking earlier, I was on site today, normally my coworkers are here, they're up here on a daily basis managing this, so I'm filling in. So that said, we were talking earlier today and I was just telling them, I'd be remiss if I had to do the same thing over, I'd give you the same advice. The biggest thing that you guys did for yourself, or this county board and the highway committee did for itself, you probably saved 8.5% on $11 or $12 million when those bids came in on bid day, is order all the materials. And you were fortunate, because I was telling other clients, there's another one not too far away, and I said, stop, don't bid this thing out, let the prices kind of come back. So when this bid, we knew we had reached the apex, and after that it was just gonna go and shoot up. And I only had one other client that listened to me besides Barron County, and all the rest of them got put on the escalator. And there's one that's somewhere between $6 and $8 million more, and they should shut it off. So, but
if we go back to the unsuitable soils and where the borings were taken, the borings were all taken at footing locations. If you look, all of these blue outlines, those are building outlines. So the borings were done where the footings were gonna be, which is the most reasonable thing to do, what's gonna be supporting us underneath. A lot of the areas that we found were out in back, like Bob referred to, the one that was between the salt shed in the back of the building. When Erickson started excavating that and they called me out there, it was like, where did this stuff come from? I mean, there was old oil filters and appliances, just, it was a big junk hole. none of us in the department were around probably when that was even built, was even put in.
Building footings and foundations are obviously much more important than putting a piece of fabric down and then driving over it for the next, 20 years. And I think if I had to look back on this, the driving routes on this site, or the site circulation routes are literally about the same now that they have been for outside of that salt shed, have been about the same for forever. Because we really didn't have much room all these years to plop in something new. And there was very little that got shifted around, so.
Bud?
Do we now have the materials we need to finish it?
Yeah, I think so. There's a few that are gonna be, hold up the overhead doors was a big one. That was literally about a 10-month wait. They were the first thing ordered in January, I think, and then they're just getting hung now. But overhead doors are in fact, these overhead doors, the pieces, from what I understand, the stamping machine is in India, and they were on a truck, they were on a cargo container in California, then they had to go to Houston or someplace to get assembled, and then they ended up coming up here. But overhead doors are notorious.
We still have some owner purchase things that we're working through, when we say the equipment, things like, the furnishings and that type of stuff, we're still working.
Most of that's readily available,
This is
or more
a
readily.
comment to
Okay.
Mark, you don't have to respond. It sounds like, Mark, you were blindsided by bureaucracy. You don't have to comment.
Any other questions? Patty?
The facility was absolutely fascinating, and it was interesting, and Mark did such a nice job explaining to Kathy and I. Were new, but the old building was so neat and orderly, and the men really take pride in what they do, the crew. We were amazed how clean and neat their workstations were, so thank you to the men.
Yeah, they historically, I have projects right now going on from Sioux Falls, Minnehaha County, all the way to Sheboygan. And historically speaking, the county facilities are pretty clean. There's only been a few of them where the facility gets so tough and shaped that they don't care anymore and they kind of walk away from it. But yeah, they do a good job here. Yeah.
Any additional questions or comments? If not, thank you, guys.
For those that didn't get to the tour today, if you'd like to see the site, you can give me a holler and we'll see if we can make some arrangements to get you through. Okay?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, item number 8, election administrative funding. Had a lot of people call me. As you know, I'm trying to keep Republican, Democrat fighting away from Barron County because we've got a hell of a county and everybody works together. So even the people I've been talking to have been very civil and handle themselves well. So now we're to the point, we got A, B, or C, one of those resolutions. I'd like somebody to make a motion to pick one of them.
Oh. I move that we adopt C.
Okay, C is a resolution that was, I believe, is that the one from Walworth County, kind of mimicking that, Jim? Yeah, the shorter version. Everybody's got it. I didn't see what page is that. I got them all printed out, so I didn't know what page for sure. Okay, it's the one on page 21 and 22. It's the shortened version that actually Supervisor Cook asked at our executive meeting. We had two versions. We had A and B, and he asked that we had come up with another version that's a little more concise. And so that's what we did. We got a motion now. Is there a second for C?
Second.
Supervisor Crew? Okay, is there any discussion or comments relative to that resolution?
If I may, as a sponsor of this and ask for it at our executive committee, it does exactly what you're asking. It does not try to bring in or use statistics from other counties or what happened in other parts of the state. This is Barron County. It's pretty precise and it ties very well with the upcoming ordinance that we're gonna vote on. And as the speaker, one of our, public speakers said, I believe that if we don't have a good ordinance, the resolution is meaningless. They go hand in hand or hand in glove. So, that's what I'm doing.
Don't have to. Gary?
Yeah, is this gonna be on the platform for WCA?
No, the A is actually the one that we were gonna do the platform. You know, we could actually do a resolution maybe next year for that, you know, but right now, no.
Okay, so the timeline is next year for the.
Yeah. Actually, like
WCA?
I mentioned before, I'm on the WCA, Wisconsin Counties Association Resolutions Committee. That committee, the timeline for submitting for this year is passed, but there will have an annual meeting in September that you can bring additional resolutions to. And I am the chair is the voting member for the 72 counties. And I'm also, if sometimes they get voted down, they get voted back to the board of directors. I'm actually on that board of directors. Now, I'm only one person in all those things we're talking about, but no, that A is the one that was going that route, and C is the one we are, we have on the table here, and it does, the ordinance that we're coming up next, it is kind of companion with that. So we are addressing the situation, I feel. Any additional concerns or comments?
But this is only for our county clerk. This does nothing for municipalities or cities within Barron County.
We can't even control our county clerk. We can't control those cities or, no offense. But, you know, she's an elected official. If she wants to snub her nose at us, she can do that. So this is kind of what Heidi was indicating. The state tried to do this and the governor vetoed it. So and Heidi's comment was, hey, let's have it on the county level. At least we got something to hang our hat on. And so, yeah, we can't tell the cities, townships, and villages what to do. Bob?
Yeah, my issue, the language on this, no donation shall be accepted from any persons or non-governmental entity for the purpose of elections administration. Just for the nuts of it, I looked up what's the definition of elections administration. And the definition I found is election administration means preparing for, facilitating, conducting, or administering an election. Normally, I wouldn't have a problem with that, but here in Barron County and in every county, we've got elected officials in partisan offices, clerk of court, county clerk, sheriff, you know, we've got several of those. Accepting or preparing for an election, I would think accepting funds from the Republican Party, the Democratic Party, whatever party it is preparing for an election under the definition of election administration. It could be interpreted that this is, well, I think it certainly is. It prohibits our partisan offices from accepting any donations. A Republican running on a Republican ticket can't accept money from the Republican Party. Same thing with the Democrat side. It could be argued that this is going to prohibit those people from accepting any funds from their own party. Beyond that, you know, and when we met, the executive committee met on
July
the
6th.
6th of the month. And the Supreme Court ruled on the 8th of the month that ballot boxes were illegal. And, you know, and it's very clear what they said, you know, ballot boxes, the genesis of this was the ballot boxes. And that's where this resolution, I think, is directed at, making sure that none of that happens. Well, okay, so the Supreme Court said you had, the statute is absentee ballots shall be mailed by the elector or delivered in person to the municipal clerk issuing the ballot or ballots. Okay, so that rules out ballot boxes. You can vote absentee by putting it in the mail or delivering it in person to the clerk. From my standpoint, I think the dissenting opinion in that case is the one that makes sense to me. It says delivered in person it does not say delivered in person by the elector. It says put into the mail by the elector, but delivered in person or delivered in person. The legislature could have saved us a whole lot of trouble if they would have
But
said.
I don't know that we're specifically addressing that, Bob. We're talking about accepting money from Republican Party, Democratic Party. I don't think it's talking about a Republican candidate getting money from their own party or a Democrat getting money from their own party.
Well, I think it could be argued that way though, Louis. That's what it's one interpretation. Election administration means preparing for an election, by one of our partisan offices. That could include accepting
I
money.
think it's a little stretch, but it could. Bill?
Well, what we're trying to prevent here is George Soros and Zuckerman flooding the state with money like they did the last
Yeah,
time.
well, let's not go there, Bill. Let's not,
Not there.
It can happen the other way too, So,
It does.
yeah, is there any other, Randy?
Again, I do think I understand what Bob is saying, but in preparing for election, that is the county clerk's job. It's not the sheriff's job. It's not the register of deeds job. It's not the treasurer's job. It is the county clerk's job. And the point of this was our county clerk, and we want to encourage other municipal clerks not to accept those funds. Now, I do agree that it could be much clearer that we could actually insert, John, help me here, we could actually insert in preparation of elections by the county clerk. If that would, John, do you have an issue with that?
Do you want to amend your motion to put
I was
that
willing to do what it takes to help.
in?
Okay, so where it says now there be it resolved, A, no donation shall be accepted from any person or non-governmental entity for the purpose of election administration by the county clerk, including but not limited to. So I would amend my motion to include by the county clerk.
Who had the second on that one? And are you comfortable with that?
Is that on both A and B? Yes.
Is, any further discussion or concern? Okay, yeah, I guess right now we're voting on the amendment that we added that verbiage about by the county clerk. All those in favor of including that amended language indicate by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, raise your hand. Okay. Supervisor Olson was opposed. Okay, now we're back to, so that passes the amendment. Now we're back to the original item number C, that the resolution, and as amended. All those in favor of passing?
Ask for further discussion.
Oh, further discussion. Go ahead.
I shared this with the executive committee, so I'll share it with the county board as a whole. I've been involved in local government for the better part of 30 years. Money's pretty tight. It's always tight. And I think it'd be irresponsible for local government not to consider all sources of revenue. The $5,000 the city bear, yeah, we bought a drop box, but we've been using it for other things. It's bill payments and tax payments, that type of thing. We purchased other supplies that we would have purchased anyway. The county board consists of 29 members. I think they're intelligent, educated, experienced. And I think they're quite capable of making a decision on a case-by-case basis. I think we'd be doing a disservice to the voters by not taking advantage of any possible revenue that comes in and looking at a case-by-case basis. Thank you.
Any other comments? Okay, we got a motion and a second to approve Resolution C as amended. All those in favor indicate by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, raise your hand. Supervisor Olson, Supervisor Rogers, Supervisor Banks. Did I miss anybody? Okay, that motion's carried. So we're going with Resolution C as amended. Now, item 8D, ordinance amending the Barron County General Code, creating section 2.03, subparagraph A, election administration, donations, grants, and integrity. That's the ordinance that was on your pages, looks like 23 and 24. Gotta get a motion to accept that ordinance. Motion by Supervisor Cook, second by Supervisor Vaughn. Any additional concerns or questions, comments?
To make it consistent with the
Clerk.
resolution that we just passed, I would like to amend my motion to accept this ordinance. John, I'm looking here quickly at the number of places where it talks about for the purpose of election administration by the county clerk. In item number 1, 2, 3, and 4. You would add that to by the county clerk.
1, 2, what do you say?
1, 2, 3, and 4.
1 through 4. With the words by the county clerk,
By the
Supervisor
county
Cook?
clerk, yes.
Yeah. Okay, do we get a second on that amendment? Supervisor Hanson, second. Okay, we're voting, any comments or questions? Any discussions on the amendment? Adding that. Supervisor Vaughn.
So that makes it sound to me like we're saying the county clerk has to abide by this, but anybody else can do what they want.
Well, we can't really tell those other people what to do, but so we're reinforcing this information. We're trying to keep the integrity of our voting laws in Barron County intact, and so yes, that's what we're saying. Any other comments? Okay, all those in favor of passing that amendment indicate by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, raise your hand. Supervisor Olson, Supervisor Krug, Supervisor Vaughn. Okay, that amendment passes. Now we're back to the main ordinance as amended. All those any further discussion on that? Not all those in favor of passing that ordinance indicate by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, raise your hand. Supervisor Olson, Supervisor Rogers, Supervisor Banks. Any other ones? Okay, that ordinance passes. Thank you, everybody. Okay, on to item number 9, zoning ordinance amendment. Can I get a motion to approve that rezoning? Motion by Supervisor Thompson, second by Supervisor Rogers. Any further discussion on that? Not all those in favor of passing that zoning ordinance indicate by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, say no. Yeah, it passes. You're abstaining? Yeah, 10 and 11 are gonna be roll call votes.
Correct.
Resolution authorizing the use of American Rescue Act dollars, ARPA for short, for the purchase of the broadcast system distribution equipment for the Rice Lake Community Media. That Jeff had that explained in his memo, it's $10,000. It actually is coming out of the ARPA allocation for our IT department. They did a good job of purchasing equipment. They had room to put this 10,000 in. So, motion by Supervisor Heller to pass that resolution, second by Supervisor Olson. Any additional concerns or comments? Not, Supervisor Vaughn?
I see in the letter from Rice Media that they want to purchase this in order to provide broadcasting capabilities for ongoing messaging to contain and mitigate the spread of COVID-19. That's the purpose. I'm just wondering how long we're gonna perpetuate this.
They did that they would put that in there because some of the ARPA money, when originally had to be COVID, they didn't know that we got less than $10 million, and so we could spend it as appropriate. I'm sure they thought that we would have to meet all the 61 pages of criteria, but we don't have to because we didn't get more than 10 million.
They were trying to cover us by saying,
Right.
using that wording.
Yeah.
So
They're gonna use this. They broadcast a lot of school board, a lot of athletic events, and they're out in the public quite a little.
Any other comments or concerns? Not all's in favor, we gotta do a roll call vote. Go ahead. Yes?
All right. Dan Buchanan,
Yes.
Audrey Kuzlet,
Yes.
Bill Efritz,
Yes.
Craig Turcott,
Yes.
Dale Heineke,
Yes.
Bob Rogers,
Yes.
Diane Vaughn,
Yes.
John Banks,
Yes.
Terry Lee,
Yes.
Carolyn Bartlett,
Yes.
Pam Paul,
Yes.
Bill Stradle,
Yes.
Gary Texto,
Yes.
Jim Gores,
Yep.
Gary Nelson,
Yes.
Roberta Mosentein,
Yes.
Pete Olson,
Yes.
Kathy Crew,
Yes.
Carol Moon,
Yes.
Fran Langman,
Yes.
Louis Oki,
Yes.
Patty Anderson,
Yes.
Randy Cook,
Yes.
Jerry McRoberts,
Yes.
Mark Thompson,
Yes.
Bud Hanson,
Yes.
Stacy Wenzel,
Yes.
Dana Heller,
Yes.
Bob Anderson.
Yes.
All voting yes, all 29.
Okay, thank you. That motion, the resolution is carried. Item number 11, resolution authorizing the increase in hourly wages paid for the Meals on Wheels drivers. There is a change on page 33, line 17. It says an increase in their hourly rate from $7.50. The minimum wage is $7.25, so they'll be going, it's not $7.50, it's $7.25 per hour, $10 an hour, effective immediately. Motion by Supervisor Gore, seconded by Supervisor Moen. Any discussion relative to this? Supervisor Cook?
I know they asked for the $10. $10 seems very reasonable to me. Was there an explanation? Obviously, it's more than $7.25. But why not? I mean, I just think that's a pretty modest increase.
That's what they asked for, and we're still gonna have to squeeze that in with some other things. And that's what came from Jen, and Rachel and Jen discussed this and asked that it be set at 10. That's where it was set.
Jen's the head of the department and Rachel's a health and human resources person.
There's still a lot of people that deliver Meals on Wheels
For
For free.
volunteers.
Yeah.
Yes, yes.
Thank you.
Any further discussion or comments? Not, we'll go roll call vote.
All right, we'll start with Audrey Kuzlet,
Yes.
Bill Efritz,
Yes.
Craig Turcott,
Yes.
Dale Heineke,
Yes.
Bob Rogers,
Yes.
Diane Vaughn,
Yes.
John Banks,
Yes.
Terry Lee,
Yes.
Carolyn Bartlett,
Yes.
Pam Paul,
Yes.
Bill Stradle,
Yes.
Gary Texto,
Yes.
Jim Gores,
Yes.
Gary Nelson,
Yes.
Roberta Mosentein,
Yes.
Pete Olson,
Yes.
Kathy Crew,
Yes.
Carol Moon,
Yes.
Fran Langman,
Yes.
Louis Oki,
Yes.
Patty Anderson,
Yes.
Randy Cook,
Yes.
Jerry McRoberts,
Yes.
Mark Thompson,
Yes.
Bud Hanson,
Yes.
Stacy Wenzel,
Yes.
Dana Heller,
Yes.
Bob Anderson,
Yes.
Stan Buchanan.
Yes.
All 29 present voting yes.
Thank you, everybody. It's passed. Item number 12, resolution restatement of the qualified retirement plan, Peloton Prime Choice Plan. If you look at, page 3 of Jeff's memo, on 12, the last sentence says, do nothing in our qualified Pelican, HRA, and 401B retirement plans expire, costing county employees an additional 29.65% taxation on their sick leave or vacation payouts upon separation from employment with the county. Jeff strongly recommends we approve this, and I agree with him. Motion by Supervisor Buchanan to pass that, seconded by Supervisor Wenzel. Any concerns or questions? Not, all those in favor of passing that resolution indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say no. Okay, that passes. Thank you. Number 13, the Barron County Rules and Procedures, changes, and this is the first reading. There'll be a second reading at the next month. John, there was, I think, a typo on, let's see, under where we listed all the various committees that we don't have to attend in person. I think it's on the second or third sentence from the bottom, representatives shall be allowed, and I think you just want to say allowed. Now, what happened is this came before exec. We had it here last month for everybody. Exec pretty much kept everything the same except this paragraph, the page I was just talking about, which is what under C, the double I, when you have your, not the county board, but your non-county committees, boards, and commissions, which is a list of 22 in your packet. They control whether you're in person, whether you're virtual. So if we said you had to be in person and they go virtual, you don't get to go to the meeting. So that's not very good. So the executive said, let's list those boards that people can attend virtually because we, as the county, are not deciding that. Everything else they left the same, including where we talked about the county board supervisors. They can attend 3 meetings virtually, 3 consecutive ones, but after that, they cannot. And as you know, there's been discussion relative to that. And Gary, did you have any questions for John? I guess here's what we're thinking. Right now, I was thinking we're doing all this work on the audio place. It would be nice if we could wait and see how that worked. I know some people say it doesn't matter. We still want you here in person. But I was thinking that we could see, look and see how it works before we make a decision. So I was thinking, well, there could be a motion made that we'll table it for 6 months and then revisit it on that. The trouble with that, I think, John and Jeff, is that if we do that, we revert back to our previous rules and procedures, which means you have to be in person all the time. And we don't want to do that. Right now, at least we're getting through, well, I guess some people, I don't know. Right now, we're getting 3 virtual. So in the meantime, I think we're going to have our corp council review it to see if we are allowed at the second reading. Can we actually do something like that, table it for 6 months? I'm not saying that you're all going to agree to that. I'm just saying it would give it, because the executives voted on this, but the full county board is not. So I'm trying to give you more options to handle this. Gary?
Yeah, the remodeling of the county boardroom was sold based on the technology that we're gonna have in there, so we could do this remote meetings and things like that. And the taxpayers paid for it. And now we're saying, well, we aren't gonna use it. We're gonna be really conservative. So we don't even know if we never have a chance to see if we're overusing it. We need to see how we can use it. And the taxpayers are probably, if I as a taxpayer and my constituents, they're gonna say, we paid for it, use this stuff. And
well, there's a few comments, public comment as well.
yeah, right. And the other thing is, can we suspend the rules? The existing rules are we have to be there all the time. Do we have to suspend the existing rules to do a study or take some time to look at how this works? Is that a suspension of rules?
You would suspend the rules. It's the rule that requires attendance. Right now, it's mandatory attendance, but we've been operating under some special rules since COVID's been in place. But you could suspend the rules, at least that rule, to allow for virtual attendance while this is being considered, if that's what you want to do.
I'd like to see it if we could maybe let John and Jeff revisit this and get it all nailed down, and then we can, in his memo and update, explain to us what we're doing and our options in case people do want to change their mind.
Can we not go 6 months, but maybe 3 months or something?
You can do whatever you want. Somebody makes a motion.
I guess I
guess
I'd like to see how they.
You need a motion?
No, well.
Yeah, you could accept the motion to suspend this. They could make a motion to suspend the passing these for 3 months, couldn't they?
first reading, that's why it's a first reading, so you can consider it and decide what you wanna do. If you
Yeah.
wanna
Great.
do it this month, you can do it this month, you wanna do it next month, you can do it next month.
I'll make a motion to suspend the rules to use the 6-month period to evaluate how this works or not. I think we need more than 3 months. We need 6 months because there might be people that get sick. We don't know what's, I'd say, I'd be in favor of a whole year.
They're supposed to have the stuff in on July 25th, but who knows if they will.
Yeah.
Ready?
Again, I was at the executive meeting, I thought about this. My previous career, solving problems. When you look at a problem and you solved it, and created other problems, it wasn't a good solution. This is, the only solution here is to allow the constituents of every member here to decide whether or not they like you attending virtually from Florida, the Bahamas, nursing home, wherever. I don't believe the county board, if we ultimately remove someone and we stuck to 3 consecutive and their constituents would re-elect them, only for us to do it again, the auditorium does not have enough seating. And it accomplished nothing. I do believe, and we talked about it in the exec, I do believe that the constituents of every member in this room has the right to know how I voted, how I attended, if I attended, and they should have that information to decide when they go to the ballot box. For the county board, to censure, and have that responsibility when we have other business that, in my opinion, is far greater than one member whose constituents can solve that problem. At the second reading, I would like people to consider just removing that completely. I don't need 6 months to study.
That's your opinion, and there's a lot of people with different opinions, so, right now, we've got a motion to suspend the rules for 6 months. There's second by Supervisor Efforts.
This is Louis, this is Terry.
Hey, Terry.
Yeah, one of the things you didn't mention Regional Business Fund in the list there, and they meet every month, but only personally every quarter.
Can we add that, John?
Sure.
We'll add her, Terry, thanks.
Yep.
Okay, Bob?
I appreciate the comments that were made by Mr. Willers and Ms. Green about the written comments being a part of the record, but not going to be read into the record.
Okay, I agree. Can we talk about that after we deal with this problem? All right, or this one.
This is not a problem.
Well, not a problem. Stan?
My question is, what rules are we voting to suspend?
Right now, if we just keep our present rules, I guess everybody has to be here in person. Because that we did virtual, that I guess is not applicable right now.
What you're suspending is not one of the rules of the county board, so it doesn't need the 2/3 vote. What you're amending or suspending is the policy or the procedure, which is under section 204D, which talks about the attendance policy of the county board. So state statute says it's mandatory. It doesn't get into what mandatory means, whether it's virtual or in person. Your rules are what are saying, or not your rules, your procedures under 204D are saying that it's mandatory is what is in place right now, mandatory in person. What your first reading is to say it can be virtual, but only 3 times a year. So what you're suspending is the rule that requires it to be mandatory, or the policy and procedure that requires it to be mandatory. So you're suspending 204D sub A. That's what you're suspending.
So does that mean you can be virtual as much as you want until we do something different? Oh boy, I'd like to wait and get this all sorted out, and so we can make an intelligent decision, because I don't know what decision to make right now myself. Patty?
Why are we asking for it to be changed? What is the real reason for it to be asked to be changed to as many virtuals as somebody wants?
Because some people feel that attending virtually is their right, and they should be allowed to represent their citizens virtually. Some people feel that way. And right now, it's been voted at exec that we're allowing 3 virtuals, and that the rest are in person. So if it comes to the 4th one and they aren't here, they don't get to come on, like Terry Lee is up here. They'd have to, like the citizens, and go on YouTube, and they wouldn't be able to vote or voice their opinion. And what Randy's saying is that means that, they don't get to do their job as a supervisor, and he's saying basically that their voters should determine that, not the rest of this board. And there's a definite decision. It's not the majority of the views at executive.
Well,
But-
this will tell you when our rules were written. Attendance at all county board meetings by supervisors is mandatory pursuant to 5911 sub 4. Phone appearances not permitted at county board meetings. So this was written before we even had video, Zoom, whatever appearances. So that's why it's being updated to allow the virtual attendance.
We got some other issues like Bob was talking about here before, but I would like to have John and Jeff explain to us exactly what our options are, about what we're voting for, so we don't make a decision that's gonna harm us.
Or those phones on the party line.
Yes, but we do have a motion and a second on the floor, don't we?
do have 2 shorts and a long.
Do you want to withdraw it? No, he does
I
not.
didn't make it.
Oh, you didn't?
I didn't make.
Who made the motion then?
I did, Gary.
Oh, yeah, Gary did.
And effort second.
And Bill seconded. You want to vote on that, or you want to wait till we can get a little more explained for us next month?
And then I can bring it up again
Yes.
next month?
Yes.
I can.
I'd like to have it so that Jeff's gonna tell us, hey,
Yeah.
here's what you can do, here's what you're voting for, and when you do it, this is the consequence of it. And I don't know that answer right now.
The technology is already obsolete when you get it.
Yeah.
And if we're not gonna use it, it's even gonna be more obsolete when we start using it.
That's supporting your argument now, but I'd still like to
So
know
I'll
what we can do.
I'll rescind my motion.
Bill, are you okay with
Yeah,
saying?
I'm okay, and wait
Okay.
until next month.
Okay, so we're off that subject for right now until next month. But Bob, you had a concern that it was brought up in public.
Yeah,
comment.
the written comment thing, if it's not going to be read at a meeting, and we sometimes will deal with issues as they come up at any particular meeting, and there's a public comment about it. If it's going to be a record, posted as a record of the meeting, but sometime at a later date, I'm not gonna have the benefit of what that opinion is that's in writing. Now, I'd like to know what that opinion is, but I'd also like to know that the individual who wrote that opinion is the one who actually did write it.
A Barron County citizen, taxpayer, landowner, not somebody from
Yeah, and I
south.
don't know how you
Yeah.
monitor that.
Dan,
In the same regard that we ran into a meeting at one of our other boards, we had people that had 3 pages of typewritten notes that attempted to read that, and we didn't have a timer at that point. So if you're gonna potentially consider allowing someone to submit written notes, you have to have some form of limiting the parameters of how long someone's required to read that as well.
You don't want a novel.
And that
How
would
many
be
words?
important, because otherwise someone will send in 3 pages, 2-sided, expect someone to try to read that in front of a group, and it's gonna go over what you would be if you were in person.
Brandon.
Should it be notarized?
It's called public comment because you're here. If you allowed written comments to be read, that was the requirement, you could effectively filibuster a county committee meeting for days. Political people would figure it out in a heartbeat, and if they didn't like something, they would have 1,000 written comments to be read. It's a filibuster. That's why the people in the big seats don't like them, and that's where they belong, is up there, not here.
Well, yeah, you made up my mind there anyway. John or Jeff, do you have any comments? No? Okay, Gary.
Does 88 cover anything like that?
88,
American Disabilities Act.
reasonable accommodations. I don't think it covers the public comment. But
Diane.
I haven't looked at it either, so, yeah.
I have been contacted by a constituent who had an issue that they wanted to discuss. And I asked them to come to the board meeting and speak, and they physically cannot come. So they don't have an option to voice. I mean, they talk to me and I help them solve their issue, but there are people who physically can't come.
Could you not voice their opinion though?
Do it virtually.
Yeah.
They're allowed to speak virtually? Well, I
No,
believe that there's.
no, they are not. No, they aren't. But you could, as your supervisors, you could voice their opinion.
That's right.
You don't even have to do it in public comment. You can do it on the agenda item.
So you have to ask for an amended item to add that to the agenda.
No, if it's on the agenda and you want to talk about it, you can wait till it comes up on the agenda and you can talk about it. You can,
It was a different item. It was something unrelated to the agenda. They just had
okay.
it.
Well, you can also ask me or, put it on the agenda, and, that kind of stuff.
I think that's a pretty good, I think that's a really good, scenario to look at there. What it amounts to is when you sit there and talk about like the written comments and stuff like that, they can sit there and go to their representative, talk to them, and sit there and say, I want you to bring this up, and stuff like that, versus having to go through all this.
Yeah, well, Randy brought that up, oh boy.
But first of all, should if somebody that can.
That all makes perfect sense.
Yep.
You're a legislative body. You're a legislative body. You're a legislative body. You're not a working
We have to
committee.
make sure that all of the supervisors are responding to all of their constituents.
Well, again, you can't tell the other supervisors what to do, Then the voters decide that.
But it's a good way for the voters to find out
It
what
has-
their supervisor's
Yeah.
paying attention.
Right,
Or
that's
they
right.
can call me and I'll refer it.
Patty.
So
There you go.
written comments, they're mailed in, or like Bill Smith, Dr. Smith sent a letter to all, would that be a written comment? The letter that he wrote to all the supervisors, would that be a written comment? No. Okay, so they come in, I want to understand. So they come into you?
I get written comments and I refer them, or Jess and I will talk about them, or John will say, we got this written comment, and we'll refer it to a committee, or I'll take it to one of you board supervisors and say, I got this for this committee of record, this is what I received, I'll put it on the agenda, or I'll talk to the chair of that committee and say, I got this document, I think this is the appropriate agenda item description, we'll discuss it at that point, and you can read it in the committee.
And that's why they vote you in as a supervisor to do their bidding for them.
I've been on committees there where that's such, that the very exact thing happened. This is what you call them, that you sat there and you came before.
Exactly.
And this is a concern, whatever, and stuff like that, and the committee decided upon it.
Property we just discussed the property, we discussed, we had a concern with the way that Monroe Avenue meets the parking lot. We had a written comment on that, and we took it to the board and filled out, we have a maintenance thing, we filled out a maintenance request, and the chairman knew about it.
In general, as a public comment, then, people that attempt to send an email out and blanket the entire county board, generally, they should be forwarding that to their person. That person then should come to you or to the appropriate committee, set it on the agenda for that appropriate committee, then they decide if it goes beyond that. So as a generalization, someone that sends an email out to the entire county board is inappropriate and probably not targeted in the right way. Not that you can stop that, but generally there's the correct way to do it, and that wouldn't necessarily be the right way.
And we just had an instance here where somebody contacted their representative, the representative did not get back to them. They called me and I addressed it and we went that way, so.
But instead of sending it out to everyone.
Right. Instead of sending it to everybody.
The blanket.
Any further comments on that, Bob? Are you comfortable?
I'm comfortable.
All right, so we're going on the second reading next month. Okay, I don't know.
First reading next month.
First reading next month, because you have
First
postponed
reading
it.
next
Oh,
month.
that's right. Okay.
Is there a motion on the floor?
No, there's, you would
Oh,
do it, you
yeah,
would
but-
build it in.
Catch up here.
We didn't take any action, so we really haven't postponed it. This is the first reading. Right?
That's what I thought.
Yes,
Yeah,
right,
yeah,
I'm sorry.
yeah.
You-
But
I
we
stand-
still, the plan would be to address it at the second reading
Yes.
and make a motion or something.
Yes,
Correct. You are right.
with a very clear explanation, Larry.
Right.
So do we need a motion to table that?
No, we're just,
First
we're
reading.
going on. Okay, item number 14, American Rescue ARPA expenditures. Jody had a nice synopsis in the packet. The only thing I think it doesn't do is, I think we got them all pretty much allocated for when you start talking about Ann Street School, if we do that. High-speed internet to the communication towers and some more ATV and snow bridges. So don't think there's a pot of money hanging out there that we can use. 15, report from our county administrator.
Any questions from board members for me on any of the items? Okay, that's something.
Yeah, I like that, yeah.
Appointments, I am asking to appoint Nate Dunstan, he's the medical examiner, he would like to, I think you're chair of that committee.
Yes.
He would like to be on that committee so that he hears where the traffic.
He came last time and he was a good participant.
Yeah, he'd like to know where those traffic fatalities are occurring.
Okay, motion by Carolyn, seconded by Patty. Any discussion?
Is he gonna be in person?
No, he's gonna be allowed virtual because he works in Hayward.
But he did come in person last time. Okay, all in favor of the appointment, indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, but same sign. Motion's carried. Claims, petitions, correspondence, John?
No.
Good. 18, suggestions for future agenda items.
Next meeting, 4 PM at the campus, where they're gonna have a guided tour, and I boned it back another half an hour to give you time to, if you wanna get a sandwich between that time. Gary Wheeler, who's up there, knows you're coming, and he's excited to show you around and show what's going on at the campus. So 4 PM at the campus, we'll have a walk.
Is there a mask mandate?
No,
No mask mandate.
The meeting will
be at 7 o'clock.
Here.
Here.
Meeting's here at 7.
That's what I was wondering.
Yeah, 4 up there, 7 down here.
What's the date?
22nd.
August 22nd. 19, discuss strategies and options for securitization of the opiate distributor settlement.
We need closed session.
Okay. Carolyn?
I'll make a motion, we go into closed session pursuant to section 19.851B for the purpose of deliberating or negotiating purchase of public properties, investing public funds, other specific business, or whenever competitive or bargaining reasons require a closed session.
Seconded by Supervisor Heller. Do you want to do a roll call?
Who do you want included?
Just myself and John.
Okay.
Yes.
The board and John.
Anybody besides Minch and yourself?
No.
No.
Have a good evening, everybody. Thanks for coming. We adjourn by unanimous consent. Thank you, everybody.
Thanks, everyone.